Hi there everyone, and welcome to Advanced Squad Leader Training, or ASL. This is your host, ID Jester, and I'm hoping to do a series of videos on the Advanced Squad Leader system. As you can see, I am using the Vassal engine and the ASL module to help me design and create these video tutorials. For those of you who don't know, ASL is a wonderful engine to help you not only play ASL, but also literally hundreds and hundreds of other different games. You can find out more information from their website at vassalengine.org. Again, I'm hoping to create a series of videos on the Advanced Squad Leader system, and by no means am I an ASL expert. But I have a deep desire to understand and play this game, and I am a teacher, so I figured that I would combine these two and see if I could come up with some video tutorials to help new players understand how to play ASL. Eventually, I'm hoping to create a series of short 10 to 15 minute videos on the different rules and different aspects of ASL, and eventually get into and play an actual scenario step by step so that people can watch and see how it's played. And hopefully through all this process, some people will get to learn and understand some of the ASL system. If I make a mistake or I say something inaccurately, I'll try to mention that in the next video so that we can all be on the same page and understand where everything's going. Personally, I feel the ASL system is a wonderful tactical strategy game of World War II combat. And the reason I find it so interesting is that it gives the player tons and tons of choices constantly. Not only for just the attacking player, or the player that's moving his units, but also the defensive player. The defensive player is constantly making choices. And you constantly have this thought process of how to position your units to the best of your abilities, but not only for your turn, but where and how best are your units going to use all their abilities during your opponent's turn. So there's a constant thought process, a constant struggle, and constant choices that make this game such a wonderful and involving game and bring so many interesting aspects into the game. I think probably the number one concern that most newer players have is a lack of experience, but also the fact that they don't quite understand the different phases. Not so much what they can do and can't do in the different phases, but how all those phases relate to one another and how best to use your units to set up during those phases for not only your turn, but for your opponent's turn. Because during your opponent's turn, your units are just as valuable to you as they are during your turn. As you can see in the top right hand corner here, I have a disc that shows the 8 different phases of the game. Basically, each player is going to complete their 8 phases, and when both players have completed those phases, one game turn is over. So let's talk about those phases really quick and kind of give an overview of what they do and what you can do in them. The basic sequence of play is that each game turn represents about 2 minutes of actual game time and consists of 2 player turns, each consisting of 8 phases. The player that's capable of movement during his turn is termed the attacker, and his opponent is called the defender. So during your turn, if you are able to move your units, you are the attacker, and your opponent is the defender. The first phase that happens for the attacker is going to be the rally phase. RPH, rally phase. And you notice next to it says both, because both players are actually going to be participating during the rally phase. The attacker is going to do his phase first, and the more common things that happen during the rally phase are units can attempt to repair weapons, and you can try to rally broken units. Once the attacker has completed his rally phase, the defender will then participate and do his rally phase. Once the rally phase is complete, we go on to the second phase, which is the prep fire phase. PFPH, the prep fire phase. Basically, think of this as the attacker gets to shoot with any of his units that are capable of shooting. There's a few other minor things that you can do, or non-common things, I guess I should say, such as designate some of your units for opportunity fire, or you can perform labor tasks. And there's a bunch of other things that you can do during the prep fire phase. But for this short introductory video, think of the prep fire phase as the attacker basically can choose to shoot with his units. You notice that is phase number 2. Once you've completed the prep fire phase, those units who have not fired can then move, and that's the third phase, is the movement phase, the MPH, the movement phase. So those units who did not fire in the prep fire phase can then move. But you notice that during the movement phase, the defender can react to your movement and first fire on them and try to disrupt or injure your moving units. There are several bonuses that the defender might get, such as you moving your units with non-assault moving. So if you're non-assault moving, you would get a bonus to attack you. And also if you're moving your units out in the open, the defender would get a bonus as well to attack you during your movement phase. So the movement phase is quite reactive. You're moving your units, and the defender is deciding what units he's going to shoot at your units. Once the movement phase is complete from the attacker, the defender then actually has a phase where he's going to have defensive first fire, or a DFPH. The defender may fire any of his units that are capable of firing and did not mark with the first fire counter. So if they shot at you during your movement phase, they're going to get a first fire counter, and they won't be able to attack you during the defensive fire phase. So again, the game system with the different phases gives the defensive player lots of different choices. He has to decide whether or not to shoot you during the movement phase, or if he chooses not to, he can then subsequently shoot at you during the defensive fire phase. Is it better to wait during the defensive fire phase or during the movement phase? Again, that's why this is such an interesting and complex game, because all these different phases have a flow that new players sometimes don't understand. Basically, think of the defensive fire phase as a defender, the non-moving player, can fire any of his units that's capable of firing and are not marked with the first fire counter. Once the defensive fire phase is complete, it's back to the attacking player, and they get to then advancing fire phase, or AFPH, advancing firing phase. So during the advancing fire phase, those units that did not shoot during the prep fire phase can then use their advanced firing phase. So you might be asking yourself, why would I not use some units to always move and then fire instead of firing at the beginning of the turn. Well, the reason for that is during the advanced fire phase, those units only get half firepower. You only get half your firepower. So if you choose not to prep fire these units, then they can move. And once they move, then they can fire. But the penalty for that is they only get to fire at half firepower. Once the advancing fire phase is complete, we go to the rout phase. Rout phase is another phase where both players are going to participate in it. The attacker is going to rout all of his units first, and routing is basically a term used for those units that have become broken, and once they become broken, they're going to rout or basically run for cover and try and stay away from enemy fire. Once the attacking player has routed all of his units, then the defensive player will also do the same thing and rout any of his units that have become broken. After the rout phase, we go to phase 7, which is the advanced fire phase. Advancing phase, the APH. In that phase, the attacker may move any of his infantry units capable of movement 1 hex or 1 location if it's movement within the same hex. So the attacker may move all of his infantry units capable of movement 1 hex or 1 location if it's within a current hex. So basically they get a little reposition at the end of the phases here. And most likely what you do is during the advance phase is use your units to advance into enemy hexes, and the reason you would want to do that is for phase 8, which is the close combat phase. Once you've completed the advancing phase, then the close combat phase happens, and both sides are going to simultaneously resolve any close combat attacks. Once the attacking player has completed all 8 of his phases, the side switch and the defender becomes the attacker becomes the defender, and you simply go through the same 8 steps or 8 phases again. And when he has completed his 8 phases, 1 turn has been completed. So that's a basic overview of the different phases. We're going to get more into that and talk about more details. A lot of what I'm talking about might not be exactly specifically lined out for you at this point, but for this short video tutorial in the beginning, I just wanted to give you a general overview about what to do. So again, we're going to rally, then the attacker is going to prep fire or shoot with his units. Those units that don't shoot can move. During the movement, the defender can then do defensive fire on you. Once your movement is complete, the defender then gets to fire all of his units that have not fired, do not have a first fire counter on them. Once he's finished all of his firing, then your advanced fire phase comes. Those units that had not prep fired can then shoot, but they're shooting at only half firepower. After all the firing's done, we're going to go to the rout phase. All the broken units are going to become routed and must move away from the enemies. Then we have the advance phase where the attacking player can move all of his units 1 space, 1 hex, or 1 location. And then we have the close combat phase. And then both players switch roles. And the thing about ASL, like I mentioned earlier, is for you to not only understand what you can do during the different phases, but how do you use those phases to work together to get your units to do the best things they can for not only for your turn or during your turn, but also how do you set up for your opponent's turn. Because as you can see, a lot of things, a lot of phases that happen, the defensive player gets to do some of those phases. And your units are just as important to you during your defensive phase, or I'm sorry, during being a defender, as they are as being an attacker. They're just as powerful, just as dangerous, and just as critical that you have them in the proper spots and the proper abilities for those units. So I just wanted to give a short video tutorial on the basic concepts of ASL and talk about the different phases of the game. The next video we're going to talk about the units, what the different stats are, and talk about how the different units work and what they can do. So I'm hoping that you come back, check out this video series, and hopefully after some introductory videos and some rule videos, we'll actually get into a scenario and play out a scenario step by step so that we can see how everything works together, and you can see how the different phases and how the different units, what they can do during the different phases, and how to bring up and suggest different things that'll help you understand how your units work, not only for the attacking part, but also how they work for the defending part. So hopefully I'll get some good videos out for you guys. You can watch them. If you have any comments, please leave them, and if I make any mistakes or I say something that's inaccurate, please post a comment and I'll try to clean these up. I appreciate you guys coming out to learning and watching my videos. This is ID Jester signing off for the introductory video.